What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Look at that.
I need a planter.
A shrine to a belly button.
This is a rock skull? Look at that.
No one gets into this, but no one.
Whoa, don't take me too far.
Now that's naked archaeology. Christianity, churches, Judaism, the synagogue. Today, the distinctions are easy to make. The practices, rituals, and teachings of each faith are markedly different. It's very easy to tell a Christian from a Jew, a priest from a rabbi, usually. And let's face it, Christians and Jews, religiously speaking, don't really mix it up that much. But if you could go back in time, right here in Jerusalem, 2,000 years ago, and meet the followers of Jesus, who were they, and what did they believe? Now here's a story. I'm on a quest to find evidence of the early Jesus movement. They followed Jesus as a rabbi and adhered to the laws of Moses.
Here's the penis.
Which means they circumcised, ate kosher, and respected Saturday as the Sabbath. So really, the first followers of Jesus were Jewish, and that's why scholars have called them Judeo-Christians. But most scholars believe that some 300 years after Jesus' crucifixion, this Jewish Christian movement disappeared. So, I've gone deep inside the Galilee to find out what happened to them. We're on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. This is an appropriate place to talk about the Jesus movement, the people who first started following Jesus. Who are these people? I mean, we tend to think of them as Christians. What's their story?
The early followers of Jesus were Jews. So one of the questions we will always ask, what happens to the Jewish movement that Jesus initiated?
What does happen?
Well, I don't know that we can ever say. Jesus leaves this area and he heads south. Why? To go to Jerusalem. Why? To celebrate Passover as a good Jew. He doesn't return. He is crucified. And perhaps his followers that were Jewish had gospels and traditions that are now lost because this area was conquered just a few decades after Jesus by the future emperors of Rome. So what are these people all along here who believe that he made God present in their life? What are they thinking? I would like to know. I often urge us to think about pre-cross Christology. Now, what does that mean? Prior to the cross, there were people here who believed he was the Messiah. They believed he was the one sent into the world.
Nathan brought word of a certain man in the north, a Galilean, who's gathering the people around him. Multitudes who follow him and who already call him the King of the Jews. For he may be the Messiah we've all been praying for.
Traditional Jews believe in the coming of a Messiah. Messiah literally means the anointed, referencing the holy oil used by prophets to anoint kings.
My allegiance goes with the sword. Swear by the sword.
The Messiah's job is to gather the Jews back into the land of Israel and usher in an era of independence and peace. No small task in the days of Jesus, a war-torn time of great persecution and Roman occupation. To even be considered for the job, a Messiah must be a descendant of King David, the God-chosen second king of Israel. And according to the Gospels, Jesus could certainly make that claim.
Whoa, your king!
The earliest followers of Jesus would have regarded him as Messiah, not the Son of God, but a man descendant from a king chosen by God. The Messiah's powers originated with King David. This, tradition tells us, is the tomb of King David.
This is the reputed sarcophagus.
And the rabbi of Mount Zion knows all about the mysterious messianic powers in this king's bloodline.
So you believe that King David is buried here?
100%.
Why do you believe that?
Because from the text we have proof that that's so. We also know that if you pray here, your prayers are answered. And that's the biggest proof as it could be. When you pray here, merit of King David, your prayers are answered.
But I'm just I'm taking a more practical approach than your prayers are answered, therefore it's proof. What proof do you have?
But we don't have to prove anything here. There's a place of prayer which you experience, and I tell you, Pete, the biggest proof, when you come here and pray, it will work. I'll give you an example. Try it yourself. Come here, put your hands here, say the God of the Jews to help you, and ask Hashem, and you'll see it works. If it works, it works. You can't say it doesn't work.
Maybe the ratings, if I ask for
What?
good ratings for my show.
Good ratings, yeah. I'll give you a blessing. Come on. You put your feet together.
Yeah.
Bend your knees.
Are we gonna dance?
No, you'll just a prayer. Put your hands like this. Bend your knees a little bit. Yeah. Humble. Bend your head. Humble. And you ask, Hashem, help me. Say, Hashem, help me.
Hashem, help me.
Again, Hashem, help me. Say,
Hashem, help me.
What's your name?
Simcha.
Zen, Ben?
My mother, Ida.
Ida, okay. Just one thing. And see if it works, and you come back and say it works, and you'll know this is the place.
Got it.
Okay. Give me a kiss. Come on. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Can I get another kiss?
Why not? Be well.
Be well. You...
Okay.
I feel I'm glowing. I feel glowing. I feel like a light bulb.
That may have been a taste of the spiritual power in King David. The same power the early Jesus movement believed ran through the veins of their leader, their Messiah, Jesus. And now that I'm all charged up with messianic mojo from the sacred site, I can meet with Professor James Tabor, who knows a lot about this place when it comes to Jesus and his early followers.
Okay, we're gonna go upstairs over David's tomb. There's the building for David's tomb, and we're gonna go right up there. The upper room of a first century guest house.
It just so happens, Tabor tells me, that approximately 1,978 years ago, just upstairs from the supposed tomb of David, Jesus sat down to one of the most famous dinners in history. I'm on the top of Mount Zion, in the Church of St. Mary, in a room directly over the reputed tomb of King David, because James Tabor tells me this was once a champion chowder house for the Judeo-Christians.
This is where the Last Supper happened.
This space, right?
This space.
The Judeo-Christians are here. Why? Because Jesus is staying up on the Mount of Olives all week with Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, his friends, and Mary Magdalene's with them, and all the apostles, and they're probably wall to wall, so crowded. But for Passover, he wanted to get away.
Okay, to see if I get it. We know from the Gospels that Jesus needed a place to be with his disciples during the Passover season. He made arrangements, two-story house in the city of Jerusalem.
Right.
So if this is the spot, what happened here?
The Last Supper, and then later, after Jesus dies, they gather here and they begin having these experiences that he is risen. Now, he appears to them once in the upper room.
Right here?
Right here. They have the door locked, and they're sitting and probably eating, sitting around, and suddenly Jesus appeared among them. The Thomas scene, where he goes, "My Lord and my God," and that would be in this
Doubting
room.
Thomas?
Yeah.
Where he puts his finger in the wounds?
Yeah, that would be this room.
Here?
That's right. This space.
This space.
So after Jesus' crucifixion, this space became headquarters for the continuing Jesus movement. The Gospels tell us that James, Jesus' brother, took over the leadership, and for the next 30 years, he was able to use this place as the first HQ for the Jesus movement.
Tradition says, right here, this is the spot.
Late tradition, yeah. This is the spot, yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean this is the rock.
No, because this was destroyed in 70.
The occupying Romans suppressed the great Jewish revolt in the year 70 by utterly destroying Jerusalem and burning the Holy Temple. Tabor says we're now looking at a rebuilt structure from Crusader times, around 1000 CE.
So it was rebuilt
in the Crusader period.
Right,
see the architecture? It's Crusader. It's very beautiful.
Long before the Crusaders built this, Tabor says the Judeo-Christians returned to the rubble of Jerusalem. According to a theory put forth by Tabor's late friend and fellow archaeologist Bargil Pixner, at the end of the 1st century, the Judeo-Christians reused stones from the ruined buildings, and on this site of the Last Supper, they built the first Jesus movement synagogue.
Now look right here. This was Pixar's argument. You can basically see the parameters of a rectangular building.
The archaeology substantiates the theory. At the base of the walls, we can see building stones that archaeologists date to before 70 CE.
These are Herodian stones in situ.
This is King Herod the Great.
From the time of Herod the Great. Do you see how this kind of jags up and you've got the kind of modern stones. After the destruction in 70, you would have seen a jagged, tooth-like kind of what's left, broken, and then it's all rebuilt.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that this is an actual stone that supported the Last Supper room?
That's what Pixner argued, yeah. He was utterly convinced.
Well, I'm getting utterly convinced. Tell me why.
The history of the architecture on this site is remarkable. Each succeeding church incorporated the sacred Judeo-Christian synagogue. If we look at the structural footprints, starting with the Crusader Church of St. Mary, we discover that the original synagogue, built with this Herodian stone, was used as a cornerstone for all the structures that followed it. Moving 1400 years back in time, here's the Hagia Sion Church, built with the synagogue as an extension, then called the Church of the Apostles. And 33 years before that, the Church of the Apostles was part of the octagonal memorial church built by Emperor Theodosius, who made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And 300 years before that, the building would have been known simply as the synagogue for the followers of Jesus. And, Pixner believed, this stone supported the building James used as the movement's HQ.
So this is the Vatican before the Vatican?
It is. This is the Jerusalem church right here. Think of it. The whole family, James, all Jesus' brothers, Mary Magdalene, she would have been here many times. Picture it crowded, bustle, and people are talking, and meetings are being held, correspondence being written, dispatches. They're directing an international movement. James probably spends quite a bit of his time praying in the temple. They said his knees were like a camel. But he's also an administrator directing an international movement.
As you're saying this, it actually makes me sad. It's funny, because you brought it to life for me. I suddenly see them all here, they're eating. It's ground zero, it's the spot. They're gonna change the world. They believe Messiah has come.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
They're gonna, everything, I mean, this is it. And actually, at the end of the day, they were written out of history.
They're written out of history and they disappear.
Sad.
Yeah.
But why was the early Jesus movement written out of history? Why did they disappear?
He's a tall, tall man. He's a tall, tall man.
This is the Sea of Galilee, in Jesus' old neighborhood. And I'm on the shores of the ancient city of Migdal with Professor Charlesworth to find out what happened to the original Jesus movement after the crucifixion of their leader.
In 67, this area is destroyed and burned. Jaffa is taken by Vespasian. Gamla over here is eventually taken by Vespasian and Titus. And right here at Migdal, a whole generation, perhaps 2 generations, were wiped out. People are dying. Rome is conquering the area. These people, they have an oral tradition. When they die, memory dies with them, oral traditions go with them. Let's assume that they did write some things down, but the area is being burned. The world has been destroyed just a few decades after Jesus.
Destroy every single thing here and remove everyone.
But that world was destroyed for all Jews, and yet the traditional Jewish faith survives until today. To understand why the Judeo-Christians disappeared, we need to take some attention away from Roman persecution and look at 2 other very real pressures.
These people are going to have a struggle. They are Jews, but they're having trouble with the high priest and the power base in Jerusalem. They're being resisted by the Sadducees.
It was the Sadducees, the Jewish sect controlling the temple in Jerusalem, who collaborated with the Romans against Jesus and his movement.
He is quite as great a threat to Rome as to us.
And although they may not have wanted him killed, they most certainly wanted Jesus out of the way.
This is beyond endurance. Are we to stand by and see him overthrow the authority of the priest? He stirreth up the people and should be taken.
His movement represented a threat to their power, a destabilizing force in a delicate balance between limited Jewish freedom and total Roman rule.
And we can no longer endure a man who calls himself King of Israel, lest the Romans take away both our places and our nation.
They called him a pretender to the Davidic throne. In their attempts to vilify Jesus in the eyes of the Romans, things went further than perhaps were planned, with horrific results.
The disciples are afraid. Why are they afraid? That they will be crucified. We have the story in John 20 where they're gathered in a room and they're shaking out of fear for the Jews. Bad translation. It is Judaioi, which means Judean leaders. Here are Jews afraid of Judean leaders.
And even their most accepting Jewish brethren would have had difficulties associating with the Jesus followers.
It's just that people are going to think it's very peculiar, that's all.
They would have regarded the movement as having picked the wrong guy, especially after Jesus' crucifixion. They would have considered him a false Messiah.
If those men had succeeded, the history of Israel might have been changed.
But they did not succeed.
He simply didn't finish the job. He did not bring peace or the land back to the Jews. And so, there was a growing tension between traditional Jews and the Judeo-Christians. The idea of tensions between diverse movements in Judaism is not that difficult to grasp, especially when we have such a ripe example in present-day Jerusalem. I'm at the headquarters in Jerusalem of the Lubavitch movement. If you haven't heard of it, it's a powerful movement among Judaism today. It began in New York around the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Schneerson, and people said he was Messiah. And then something terrible happened, he died. And once he died, some people said, well, he couldn't have been Messiah, he died. Other people said he's still alive. The people in there believe that he's alive. Look over here, it says Messiah loves you. And you see some people don't love that, and they kind of poked his eyes out because it's very controversial to talk about a Messiah that seems to be dead, but is actually alive. Does that sound familiar? It sounds like if you want to learn about the ancient birth of Christianity, all you have to do is hang out with these guys. Maybe what's happening today right here is paralleling what happened then. Let's go.
We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait.
These guys know how to dance, but they dance to a slightly different tune than your ordinary Jew. And that's just like the Judeo-Christians 2,000 years ago. Because the Lubavitchers are a devoted sect of Judaism. They believe in the sacred Torah, the instructions passed from God down to Moses, and they have their head rabbi or rebbe, who they believe is Messiah. And this is where things can get complicated.
I just have a question for you. For me, it's a little bit confusing. You know, the Rebbe, I mean, obviously he was great, but he died.
No.
Okay, that's the confusing part.
Okay. We're not wasting our time here. Of course, we have to know that the Rabbi is a prophet.
Okay, but prophet is one thing, Messiah is another thing.
Okay, a prophet, according to the Torah, can never be wrong. Everyone should believe whatever he said. Now, as a prophet, he says that he will be alive forever.
So he made a mistake?
No. A prophet can't be mistake.
Okay.
That's why I said it's very important to understand before that he's a prophet. He is a prophet, he says that he's Messiah, and he says that he will live forever. Now, to get all of these ideas, how it can be according to the Torah, how it can be according to the reality that we see, that's, you have the books. This is something that should be learned. I give you a short answer, okay, but there is a very long answer to learn about this.
But I have learned something. The Lubavitchers believe that their Rebbe went away for a while and quite simply has not revealed himself yet. When he chooses to do so, they say we will truly be in the Messiah days. And that means...
This is the first generation, our generation, going to be without evil.
We're going to see the end of evil?
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is this messianic belief that makes it difficult to be a Lubavitcher in the land of mainstream Judaism, just as it was for a Judeo-Christian 2,000 years ago.
That's why you won't go back to my teaching. This man has poisoned your mind with his crazy rantings. You're wrong.
The followers of Jesus were now forced to ask a question. Can a dead Messiah still be a Messiah? Over time, some followers began to answer the question by suggesting that Jesus was divine. But for James, the brother of Jesus, that was going off message. James was now the head of the Jerusalem church. His group regarded Jesus as a mortal, human, messianic prophet, but not as divine. The followers of James were called Ebbionites, poor ones. And when they weren't running things from their Judeo-Christian headquarters, new evidence shows that they just might have written some of their thoughts down and left them in this cave.
He's a tall man. He's a tall man.
This is Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, practically the only known surviving copies of biblical documents transcribed before 100 CE. I'm here with Professor Eisenman, who tells me that the literature uncovered here is the key to understanding the early Jesus movement and what happened to it.
We're looking across into the most important cave found, Cave 4. That is the library cave. There were literally tens of thousands of fragments found in that cave, just piled up in a huge, unruly manner.
So out of that cave behind you came literature that gives us a glimpse into
time capsule into that past.
And we can actually see the Jesus movement.
That puts the lie to much of the material that we think is authentic today.
And we can see them as they were.
Yes, and it's quite, I don't say it's beautiful, but they're righteous, they're very imaginative, they're apocalyptic, they don't believe in turning the other cheek, they don't love their enemy, they do curse people and things like that. They wish a final apocalyptic judgment on all the people who are destroying Palestine, the Israelites, and all the people around them. This is a huge movement in Judaism. We have a name for it, the Essenes.
Eisenman tells me that in 1945, in this cave, they discovered the writings of the Essenes, a messianic movement that believed in a great apocalyptic war before the days of peace. He's challenging many scholars' interpretation of this literature because he believes that some of the Essenes and James's Ebbionites were one and the same. The proof, he says, can be found on the 2,000-year-old parchment.
There is a leader in the Dead Sea Scrolls called the Just One or the Righteous One. And we know that every time in the Qumran materials that you see the word Just One or Righteous One, the interpretation is the righteous teacher.
Do you believe the teacher of righteousness is James?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
What do you mean, why?
Why?
To hear the answer to that question, to see the evidence Professor Eisenman claims prove James and his followers wrote some of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Look at this. Come on, Simcha.
And to find out what happened to the JC bunch after their time here at Qumran, you'll just have to tune in next time on The Naked Archaeologist.
Oh, sababa.
You like any of this stuff?
I like it all.
It's good stuff.
He's a total man.